like to invite to a fireside chat on the topic of harnessing AI for good. And we want to discuss emerging AI trends and global responses. And we have 3 people to join. Please come to the stage. Frederick Werner, Chief Strategic Engagement Division, AI for Good at ITU. Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Let me take this away. Then Kosti Perikos. Hey, nice to meet you. Global Generative AI Lead at Deloitte, helping governments and organizations to harness AI. And then we have Xenia Fontaine, Senior Business Officer at ITU Advances, ITU's AI. There she is. Please take a seat. And can we have an applause? Thank you so much. So here we go. So you have a report that you are just presenting here at the summit. Is that right? Right. So maybe you give me a little insight on the highlights of that report that you've been working on together. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. So my name's Fred Werner. I'm from ITU. It's the United Nations Specialized Agency for Digital Technologies. And we're also the organizers of AI for Good, with 50 plus UN sister agencies as partners, but also very strong and important industry partners like Deloitte, who are helping us to shape AI for Good. Now, one of the hardest things about organizing AI for Good and our summit that happens in Geneva each year is capturing our content. So as the organizer of the summit, I actually miss my own summit. So I need to count on people who are very competent and very capable to actually capture all of the golden nuggets that happen at the summit. And if you're looking at AI for Good, I mean, it was built on the premise that AI has great promise to advance many global challenges like affordable healthcare, clean energy, food security, disaster management, but also looking at the more physical manifestations of AI that we see now in robotics, embodied AI, autonomous driving, brain-computer interfaces, and even space computing, putting data centers in space. So one thing we have to do is build collaboration around these areas. And we have 3 areas of action at ITU. So of course we have our summit where we bring the whole world together on AI for Good. But we basically have solutions and knowledge, skills and capacity, and standards and policy. And what I want to do is maybe give a little example of each one, because this is what you can find in the report. So if you're looking at solutions and knowledge, for example, we have a year-long AI startup pitching competition where we try to identify the best startups around the world using AI to solve global challenges in a unique way. And there was a startup from Estonia who had a really interesting solution. Basically, everyone knows that diabetes is a global killer, right? It's a huge problem. And they were using AI to identify the level of sugar in your blood just by the sound of your voice, which could be a game changer for diabetes. So you could avoid expensive blood sugar tests and, inconvenient pricks and all types of problems that are very nasty with that disease. But also, if AI can tell how much sugar is in your blood, what else can it tell about you? What did you do last night? Are you lying? Are you paying attention? Actually, are you paying attention? So there we start to get to the dual nature of AI, where it's not only about what AI could do, but what AI should do, right? And if we look at the skills part, we have an AI global dialogue. And basically, it's pretty hard to get everyone to agree what AI governance looks like, but it wasn't hard to identify the major gaps. And one of the major gaps was, how do we address the AI skills gap and democratize access to AI skills globally? And because of that, we launched the AI Skills Coalition. And actually last night we had a session with will.i.am, who's our AI skills ambassador. But more practically speaking, we're in 70 countries now, educating kids aged 10 to 18 on how to use robotics for good on themes like food security and disaster management. And the third example would be standards. So none of this would work without standards. AI governance, it's a moving target, and you have a lot of different governance frameworks emerging around the world, and you can find these in the report as well. But how can you take those ambitious words and principles and turn them into action? And I like to think that standards is one of those tools, because the devil is in the details and standards have details. So even if, there's that you're not getting that silver bullet that's going to be solved anytime soon. When companies and businesses and solutions need to work across borders internationally, you're going to need standards to make sure that they're interoperable. You have interfaces, and within those standards, you can bake all of the things that are important for AI for good. So how can you make sure that the standards are safe, they're interoperable, they're equitable, they're inclusive, they respect human rights, they're sustainable? So I like to think that it's not either or. While you have the big picture happening at the standards level, you can already get a lot of that common sense baked into the solutions. So I think I'll pause there, but I would like to say that what's interesting about the report is you have two angles. One is you're capturing the content that is AI for good, coming from our community at the summit and all the solutions presented. But of course, you have the Deloitte, their original research and insights, and you have the marriage of these two data sets, if you will. And I think that's where the real value of the report is. And it's targeted to member states, to policymakers, to UN officials, but also anyone who really wants to have an understanding of AI for good and the practical implications. And it's not a foresight report. It's really about what's here today, what can be used, and how to do it in the best possible way. And I think with that, I'll maybe pass it back to you or to Kosti to hear your angle.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. I mean, I think that was an excellent summary of the report. And what I liked is that we do get into the detail. We look at what it means for various industries. We look at what it means for the need for diversity of access to AI. And, when we talk about diversity, people often sort of say, what is it? People in the global south or in developing countries? Is it people of, older folk who may not have access to AI? One of the things that I think is particularly interesting is what it means for the youth. We know, I don't know if many of you have children that are entering the workforce. It's very difficult when you're young to find a job these days. So how do we create equality in that? People that are going to be displaced most by AI today. So yeah, no, I think it's great. I think that marriage that you describe between sort of our insights and all the great work that the UN does, I think puts a unique spin on it. And, I certainly enjoyed reading it. I hope everybody else does too. Sorry.
Thank you. Maybe for the audience, can you highlight, because I think it's a great initiative that you're taking, right? Are some, like you talk about emerging trends that you see, do you want to share some of the findings that you see? And also because you do it globally, do you see what other differences as well that you see maybe there? Is it industries? Is there more in healthcare? Is there more? That would be really interesting. Can you share a little bit of the results?
Yeah, I can do. And there's I guess a number of aspects. One is, what are the trends that we are seeing? Universally, I think now people are not talking about whether they're using AI. I think the vast majority of people at least know about AI and use it to some extent in their daily life, right? I mean, if you're talking to your phone or you're asking Alexa what time it is, you're using AI. So the knowledge has certainly gone up. But what we're finding is that businesses are struggling to scale it and scale it properly. Mm-hmm. So, you can talk to a CEO and they'll go, we're an AI business. And you go, well, what is it that you do? And it turns out they might be running Copilot and, have their emams are being written by AI.
The topic we had before you here.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, so they say, so the ability to scale is a real issue.
Right.
And of course, there are many human factors that come with it. But if you've discussed it before, I won't go into that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we are seeing is kind of a drive towards sovereign AI. So as you know, all these algorithms need a lot of compute. And I would say compute is the new oil. I think that's what a lot of, economical decisions.
Maybe energy, the energy we need for that.
It's energy, but it's also infrastructure, right? You need chips, you need data centers, you need energy, you need all that. And interestingly enough, I mean, what started off as a sovereign sort of government issue, a number of governments around the world saying, actually, this is really important for us in terms of to be able to develop as a nation and maybe also project soft power as a nation, has now become a corporate issue. So what people don't realize is that the new models that have emerged in the last year, they're extremely good, but they take up 40 times the number of compute tokens that the models did a year ago, right? So we've had a huge leap in the need for compute, and it becomes unaffordable. If you're a bank, if you're an insurance company, if you're Deloitte, and you look at the usage of AI in your strategy, you need to think about more than just going to hyperscalers for compute. So that's the other trend. And then what I would say is there is a general recognition that linked to that compute issue, that many countries, particularly in the global south, have fantastic talent but don't have access to compute. And actually being able to bridge that gap, I think, is central to some of the things that the report is trying to address. Right? I mean, I've traveled around Africa, I've traveled to many parts of the world and spoken to many clients. It's never we don't have enough AI engineers. It's we don't have access to the compute.
And what is this something of ITU's priorities? Maybe you can share a little bit about ITU's, because I have to admit I never heard of it before, because there's, of course, many initiatives, so maybe Xenia can do this. Maybe you can share a little bit your approach. And I think it's interesting that you are pairing up with Deloitte, from the UN, and the results that you bring, that the business part is touched and relevant as well. I think I would like to understand the for good part. Like, you mean for good for society as a whole, or like the impact driven? Because I come in Berlin, we have a lot of impact driven ecosystems that are not looking at businesses at all, right? So they are ignoring businesses, because here it is about solving for humanity or for minorities, all these things. Maybe you can explain a little bit what the for good part means in that report.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. So maybe just a quick step back on ITU side. I don't know how much you are familiar with the ITU. It's an international telecommunication union, the UN leading agency on digital technologies, and we do three main things. So one is the spectrum allocation and satellite orbit allocation. Well, simply put, if Elon Musk would like to send a satellite to space, he would need to call us.
Calls you, that's great.
Fred.
So he's the guy, that's great.
He's the guy.
We always ask ourselves, who allows that?
Another important work we are doing, and this is to respond to your question, is actually we develop international technical standards in telecommunications, and we support developing countries in building their ICT infrastructure. What does it mean in practice? Basically, ITU's main role is to connect the world and to establish the universal, meaningful connectivity. But connectivity doesn't mean just the access to the broadband. If you take an example, I was just on a panel about Africa digital economy. 37% of people are only connected, and this is really focused in main cities in Africa region. So what about rural areas? Those people, they don't have access to the basic connectivity. Without having access to basic connectivity, you can't access AI, you can't even call anyone. And this is a big issue. So how ITU ensures that those people have the access to connectivity, but also quality of services, skills that are needed? This is our priority. And finally, so in relations to AI, one of the main issues, and it's also part of the report, is the skills gap. You can see it from the levels from the Sky schools, where in countries like, for example, Estonia, they are just launching the AI curriculum in schools and ensuring that kids learn it as a mandatory class. At the same time, when we go to the developing countries, we can see that AI is still not a priority. So we are running a couple of programs, what Fred mentioned, Robotics for Good Use Challenge, for example, is to really expose those kids and the schools to AI and to the technologies. But it doesn't start only with kids. It starts with the teachers who needs to be trained. It starts with the policymakers who needs to understand why it's important to have AI, even though at the same time they are still struggling with the access to the basic infrastructure.
So in the report, you look at real world applications, right? From health, environments, agriculture, all those sectors. So what do you see? So which sector, do you see the most promising when it comes to applying AI? Is there any finding in that report, or is it all equal and all different in all sectors? Where's the most potential?
The report addresses a whole bunch of very important sectors. If you look at sort of resilience and disaster recovery, AI can help. I think we calculated in a different report that sort of disasters cost $460 billion a year in terms of damages being done. and that AI could save 15% of that just by being able to predict. So that's a little nugget. But for me, I believe a lot in healthcare and education. So if you look at healthcare, typically when we look at businesses, there's three areas that we look at AI. One is how you engage with your customers, your products. The other is kind of the support services that you might do, finance, HR. And the third is what we call the heart of the business. And if you take healthcare as an example, how you engage with your patients is going to be revolutionized by AI. I mean, we heard from you, Fred, about, being able to monitor diabetes just by talking to people. I've heard many great use cases of, for example, being able to use AI to monitor older people in their homes a lot more effectively. So they don't need to come into hospital. They don't need to go into care homes, which I think, in terms of, to your point,
also
good
costs.
for society is it's cost, but it's also great for society itself. You then look at coming into the hospital, the ability for AI to be able to just reduce the administrative burden that frankly is breaking many health services around the world is immense. And then when you go into the heart of the business of AI, my daughter, she's in her third year medical school, and I'm her dad, so obviously I wind her up, and I say, look, darling, by the time you become a consultant, your job will be like an airline pilot. Are there any airline pilots in the room?
Probably not. Maybe private pilots.
Very private pilots. Your job will be to just be there and let your airplane passengers know that there's a human there just in case anyone gets in touch. But actually, AI will be doing all the diagnosis and the robots will be doing the surgery. So, and we could pick any, I think, of those sectors in your report and do the same analysis. That is going to be revolutionary.
Okay, great. So, thank you. Last question. You see a lot of governments as well. Quick comment. What nations are advancing and what nations are the most embracing technology ones? Estonia, you mentioned. Do you think Estonia is one? Or if you don't want to comment, you don't have to.
No, it's fine. I was just at a panel hosted by Estonia, and they're definitely, I'd say, in the top when it comes to a digital first nation and maybe AI first. A lot of countries in the Gulf region.
And second? And after Estonia?
After Estonia?
Nobody? Like,
I think Ukraine is a great client.
Right.
They're one of the probably most advanced in AI at the moment because they have, an existential risk they're trying to combat through that. But I think, they'll be announcing their strategy soon. I think the idea is that they transfer that momentum to propel themselves.
Yeah. Let's hope they do it. Yes. So thank you for coming. Thanks for sharing this. And all the best. We're very excited about the results of the report. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Big applause. Thank you.